We're here now with Justin Talley, our Extension Livestock Entomologist. And Justin, we want to dive in a little bit more and talk more about how pathogens are transmitted among animals and how this really works with insects.
Yeah, so it's very unique when you think about diseases and pathogens that cause disease. There's always this component called vectors, and the vectors in our case in Oklahoma are insects, and sometimes they can be ticks. But more importantly, the ones that we're concerned with now are those that can get in horses and cattle. In particular, we're thinking about vesicular stomatitis virus and West Nile virus.
And those two have been on our minds lately, of course. Dive into each of those a little bit more and kind of what options producers have.
Yeah, absolutely. So vesicular stomatitis virus is unique because it's a virus that can cause disease in both horses and cattle. And why it's unique, because when we look at the types of insects that are involved, it's a biting midge or a black fly. In Oklahoma, when it gets really hot and our ponds start to recede and you see muddy shorelines, that's where these midges like to develop and to lay their eggs. And so when you have an abundance of these types of midges and they can feed on an infected horse that could have vesicular stomatitis virus or VS, then they could transmit it to an uninfected horse or an uninfected cow.
So when we're talking about treatment options for the insects, not necessarily the animals who may be infected, what kind of options do producers have?
Yeah, so when we think about treatment options when we're trying to avoid insect bites, there are some preventative things that we need to think about, which means locating those animals away from where the insects are. So anywhere there's open pasture that some water resources are, then you want to locate those animals away from that, which means you put them in stables during the evening all the way through the night into the morning. Now, more complexity to the horse issue is that we tend to have only one kind of product that we continually treat, which is the pyrethroid-based products. Or we apply some kind of repellent in conjunction with some kind of pyrethroid spray to keep these both biting midges and mosquitoes off.
Let's talk about how West Nile is transmitted, and sometimes we hear about it more than other years.
Yeah, so when we think about West Nile virus in Oklahoma, there is a cyclical pattern that we see that involves a mosquito. And why that is because when mosquitoes feed on a particular bird, that's how they're picking up the West Nile virus. And then once that mosquito feeds off that bird, then they'll go feed on a horse or a human in some cases. But when we think about that, so it's really dependent about the bird cycle. And so when the mosquitoes that feed on those, that preferentially like to feed on those birds as well, then we have a lot of West Nile virus transmission.
Do producers have control options in particular with mosquitoes?
Yeah, in mosquitoes, the things that they really need to think about are eliminating water. Any kind of standing water, that's going to be your first step. The second step is to do some management around your property to make sure there's no broadleaf weeds. There are thick patches of these broadleaf weeds. And then of course, lastly, you've got to treat your horse. And the main products that you can treat your horse with are with pyrethroid type products. They come in different formulations, any from a handheld sprayer bottle to wipes to concentrate sprays that you mix up into a tank, and then you can apply it to the horse. The main thing is you've got to make sure the horse is on that insecticide label, because even though you may have a product that is that's used for other animals, it has to have horse because horses can react to some of our insecticides.
Okay, Justin, thanks a lot. And for a link to that latest newsletter, go to sunup.okstate.edu.